The room went quiet the moment my mother-in-law lifted her coffee cup. She smiled like someone who thought she'd already won. "I'm flipping the family luxury property," she bragged. "Easy profit." I didn't react. I didn't blink, because the property had already sold.
Hi.
My name is Naomi Caldwell. And at that table, with the clink of porcelain and the smell of bitter espresso, everyone believed I was just the polite daughter-in-law who never spoke up. They were wrong. I sat there with my hands folded, listening to her go on about market timing, investors, and how she had the instincts for business. My husband, Daniel, nodded along, proud of his mother. His siblings leaned in, impressed. I smiled softly, the way I'd learned to do over the years, pleasant, agreeable, invisible. What none of them knew was that the family luxury property wasn't hers to flip. It never had been. Years earlier, before the promotions, before the bragging, before Daniel's family decided I was just background noise, I had quietly purchased that property under a holding company. Cash deal. Clean paperwork. My name on the final contract, sealed and filed. No one asked questions back then. They never thought I was capable of that kind of move. My mother-in-law, Patricia, had always made sure I knew my place. Little comments disguised as jokes. Corrections that weren't necessary. Praise that never came. At family gatherings, she spoke around me, never to me. I was the woman who married her son, not someone worth acknowledging. So when she raised that cup and announced the flip, I let her enjoy it. She talked about the buyer, about the closing date, about how the money would finally prove she'd been right all along. Every word dug deeper into the lie she'd built in her head. I glanced at my phone under the table. One new email. Sale confirmed. Funds released. My pulse stayed calm. I'd learned control the hard way. Across from me, Patricia laughed and said, "This family is finally going to see real success." I met her eyes for the first time that night. And for a split second, something flickered across her face. Confusion, maybe. As if she sensed the ground shifting beneath her feet. She took another sip of coffee. Still smiling. Still unaware that the property was sold, and that every signature on the contract belonged to me. Patricia had always spoken like the future belonged to her by default. At dinners, she recapped her wins loudly. Stories that grew bigger each time she told them. Daniel absorbed every word. I watched quietly, learning the rhythm of that family. Whoever spoke the loudest decided what was true. I wasn't always silent. Early in our marriage, I tried contributing ideas, opinions, even small corrections. Patricia would smile tightly and say, "That's interesting," then immediately contradict me. Daniel never noticed. Or worse, he noticed and still chose not to step in. So, I adapted. I built my life in spaces they didn't look at. Late nights. Separate accounts. Quiet meetings with lawyers and brokers while they assumed I was just freelancing. When the luxury property first came up years ago, Patricia dismissed it as risky. I didn't argue. I just bought it. Now, sitting at that table, pressure started to rise, not on me, but around me. Patricia kept talking. Daniel kept nodding. And I realized something unsettling. They weren't just underestimating me anymore. They were depending on it. The week after that dinner, the tone shifted. Patricia started calling, sweet at first. Just checking in, she'd say, asking questions that weren't really questions. Had I heard anything about delays in the market? Did Daniel mention paperwork issues? Her voice carried an edge she couldn't hide. Daniel grew tense too. He paced while taking calls, muttering about banks and timing. One night he asked me, casually, "You don't think Mom rushed this, do you?" I shrugged. "I'm sure she knows what she's doing." That answer satisfied him. It always had. Then came the email Patricia forwarded to the family group chat. Closing confirmed. Celebration emojis followed. Plans for trips. Renovations. Bragging rights. Except the email wasn't addressed to her. I saw the header. The reference number. My reference number. My stomach didn't drop. My hands didn't shake. What shook me was realizing how close she was to discovering the truth, and how quickly they'd turn on me when she did. Because in that family, success was admired. But only when it belonged to them. The confrontation came on a Sunday. Patricia invited everyone over under the excuse of brunch. Silver trays, fresh flowers, forced warmth. I knew something was wrong the moment I walked in and saw the papers spread neatly across the dining table. She didn't offer me a seat. Instead, she tapped the documents with one manicured finger and said, "Care to explain this?" Daniel turned to me, confused. His siblings leaned forward. The air felt tight, electric. Patricia's voice rose. "The bank says the proceeds were released, but not to me." She laughed sharply. Apparently, someone made a mistake. She looked at me like she already knew the answer. Like I was a clerical error. I picked up the papers slowly. "Read them." Pretended. Then I said calmly, "There's no mistake." The room froze. Daniel whispered my name. Patricia's smile cracked. "What do you mean?" I met her eyes and felt something settle in my chest, solid, unmovable. "I mean," I said softly, "the property was never yours." And that's when the room erupted. They didn't listen after that. Voices piled on top of each other. Accusations, disbelief, anger. Daniel demanded explanations I wasn't ready to give. Patricia called me manipulative, a thief, a snake who'd married into the family with an agenda. That part hurt more than I expected. Not because it was true, but because it confirmed what I'd always been to them. I left without shouting, without defending myself. I drove for hours, pulled over once, and cried so hard my chest ached. I mourned the marriage I thought I had, the family I'd tried to earn. Then the calm came. Clear, cold, focused. I reviewed the contracts again that night. Every clause, every signature, everything was legal, impeccable. They couldn't touch the sale, but they could try to destroy me. So I planned carefully. No dramatic reveal. No public humiliation. I would let the truth surface slowly, through lawyers, through banks, through consequences. I would let them realize, piece by piece, that the ground had never been theirs. And when they finally understood, it would be far too late. The lawyers made the first move. Patricia received a formal notice 2 days later. Polite, airtight, devastating. It clarified ownership, confirmed the completed sale, and outlined that any future claims would be considered harassment. Daniel came home pale. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked. "I tried," I said. "You never listened." Banks froze the accounts Patricia had already spent from money she assumed was coming. Trips canceled. Contractors stopped returning her calls. The family group chat went silent, then frantic. She called me screaming. I didn't answer. Instead, I forwarded her call logs to my attorney. Each step was quiet, professional, unemotional. That was the beauty of it. I didn't need to embarrass her publicly. The systems she trusted, banks, contracts, legal records, did it for me. One evening, Daniel finally sat across from me and said, "You planned this." I met his gaze, steady and tired. "No," I said. "I prepared for it." And that was when I realized something had shifted, not just for them, but for me too. Patricia unraveled faster than I expected. Friends stopped calling her back. Family gatherings were canceled, until things cooled down. Without the money, without the wind she'd built her identity around, she had nothing to hide behind. She showed up at our door one night, eyes red, voice shaking. Daniel answered. I stayed back. "This was supposed to save us," she cried. "You humiliated me." Daniel looked at her, then at me. For the first time, he didn't rush to her defense. Silence filled the space between them. Thick, heavy, overdue. Later that night, he told me he felt betrayed. Confused. Ashamed. I told him the truth. "I've been surviving your family for years." He didn't argue. The fallout wasn't explosive. It was slow. Relationships cooled. Lines were redrawn. I watched from a distance, detached, as the family learned what it felt like to lose control. And in that quiet collapse, I felt something unfamiliar. Relief. But the story wasn't finished yet. Not quite. 3 months later, I filed for divorce. Not out of anger, but clarity. Daniel didn't fight it. He admitted he'd spent years choosing comfort over truth, his mother over his wife. We signed the papers quietly, like two people finally telling the truth at the same time. The final twist came after. Patricia tried one last legal move, claiming emotional distress, hinting at coercion. It went nowhere. The judge dismissed it in minutes. My contracts held. They always had. I took the proceeds from the sale and did something no one expected. I reinvested. Built something new. Something entirely mine. Sometimes I pass that old luxury property. Someone else lives there now. Lights on. Life moving forward. Patricia lost more than money that day. She lost the illusion of control. And I gained something far more valuable than profit. My voice. My boundaries. My freedom. I was never stealing from her. I was just finally taking back what I'd earned.